Hello and welcome to day 6, looking at what's happened to our foods, how to be additive smart and additive aware, and what additives do we need to be cautious and concerned about because of the influence that they're having on ourselves and on our family. So today is going to be all about the flavour enhancers. This is the 600 series of numbers, so anytime you see an additive listed in your food product that starts with the number 6, you know straight away that we're talking about this group being the flavour enhancers. As part of this group, we also need to talk about MSG and the glutamates too, which are, you could argue, a natural type of flavour enhancer. Now, MSG may be familiar to you as being the culprit behind Chinese restaurant syndrome. And that would be a cluster of symptoms that would happen after people would go to Chinese restaurants, so that's where the name came from, and they got blamed for it. By using MSG in their foods, it could cause in some people problems such as chest pain with various types of symptoms such as flushing, maybe a headache, lots of numbness, burning in or around the mouth, the sense of facial pressure or swelling, and maybe also sweating as well. So it was a cluster of them all happening at once. And because it seemed to be related to someone going to a Chinese restaurant, it was considered that they were heavy users of MSG in their foods. So you do need to be careful about MSG, particularly if you are sensitive. Those symptoms, as mentioned, are not pleasant to have to go through. MSG can be used to make stale or cheap ingredients taste amazing, which is why you shouldn't actually buy those foods that have MSG in it, because it goes to show that you are buying a very poor quality product. But despite it being a nasty additive and people thinking that you will only find it in Chinese restaurant styled meals, this is actually not quite true. So it is a myth that MSG has been used in Asia for centuries, because MSG wasn't actually created until 1908. It was then introduced into the Western diet in 1948, so it is a relatively new additive in our food supply. Up until that point in time, people lived without MSG in their foods at all. It is also a myth that people in Asian countries eat huge amounts of MSG, because the reality is that the intake of MSG is a lot higher in the typical Western diet than what you'll get in Asia. Now, MSG and flavour enhancers get talked about together today because they're basically buddies. So if you have a problem with MSG and have noticed in the past some kind of reaction to it, then it's guaranteed that the flavour enhancers are probably going to be just as bad for you as well. This is because the active ingredient in MSG, also known as monosodium glutamate, is free glutamate, and this is what people are reacting to. Free glutamates are also present in flavour enhancers, which means that flavour enhancers are going to have the same response in the body as what MSG does. MSG is meant to be listed as flavour enhancer number 621, so you may not see the actual word MSG written, you may simply have the number 621 or flavour enhancer 621 on your ingredients list. But MSG can be found in other food ingredients and therefore can be hidden in foods and you not know that it is there. So it can be hidden in ingredients such as hydrolyzed vegetable protein, or HVP. Hydrolyzed plant protein may also be written as HPP, or even to something known as yeast extract, or even simply labelled as natural flavour. It is unknown to what extent yeast extract and natural flavour, how concentrated MSG may be found in there, and so that can also confuse the issue too, because some products that use yeast extract, the yeast extract itself doesn't have as much MSG naturally in it, or the amount of yeast extract used is fairly minor. Many products claiming that they have no added MSG are possibly telling a bit of a furphy there, because they will instead contain the ribonucleotides, which are technically not MSG, they are technically flavour enhancer number 635. Or the products that say that they have no added MSG are actually using a source of natural glutamates. Remember, natural glutamates can behave the same as MSG, and they can simply label it as yeast extract. Now, 635 has a bit of a nasty history of causing what is known as ribo rash. So you can see that this is one person's photograph of what this particular additive did to them, and it caused the hives there, that awful itchiness, the swelling, the blotchiness, and as you can imagine, the pain that goes with that. You have another example there, a similar kind of picture where again you've got that swollen, widespread rash being present, and then after this lady went fail-safe, which is a reference to a specific diet that not only cuts out additives but also natural chemicals that can cause problems in people. After just 7 days, that rash went away. So maybe you're getting the ribo rash and you've been wondering why you have this rash that just comes and goes and you can just never get rid of it. That can be a major clue that you are reacting to this particular group of additives. How else will you know if it's a problem? Well, you will still get the usual effects of food additives such as children's behaviour problems, headaches, heart palpitations, irritable bowel symptoms including sudden diarrhoea. So you go to the GP and you get told that you have classic IBS symptoms, and they suggest that you go on a specific diet, but they won't tell you that you may actually need to simply consider cutting out additives from your food, and that can resolve a lot of symptoms too. Irritability and difficulty falling asleep. So these are the kind of classic symptoms that you tend to find most of the additives are going to cause and be a side effect. Remember that this particular group has a history of causing an unbearably itchy rash or welts, and it can take as long as 48 hours, so 2 days, after eating a food with it before you express the symptoms of it, which means that it can be difficult to work out that it's actually this preservative, or this additive rather, that has done that to you. The rash can come and go, and it can last for up to 2 weeks. So again, that makes it difficult to work out what has caused it. Look through your food history and you'll probably find that there has been consumption of MSG and or the flavour enhancers as a group. Reactions can range from just a single itchy rash, so maybe on your hand, on your arm, it can be anywhere in your body really, to life-threatening swelling of the lips and tongue. So there are plenty of examples that people post and show how their eyes and their mouth get very red and swollen and itchy looking from consumption of this particular group of additives. Now, if you tend to eat food items that contain these additives at least once a week or more often in the week, then you may find that you have a chronic rash that doesn't go away. It may even be misclassified as eczema or dermatitis, but once you take the additive out, you'll find that the rash will go away, and therefore you'll know that it's actually been a food reaction. So where are you going to find these foods? Well, hang on to your seats because we've got a really long list to go through. You may find it, or you usually do still find it, in most of the instant mashed potato sachets around. You'll find it in the chicken salt and other flavouring salts that are added to hot chips that you buy from the takeaway store and other places. You'll find that it's flavour that can be added to frozen turkey products. You'll find it in sausages, whether you buy them from the supermarket or the butcher. You'll find it in seafood extenders. You'll find it in a lot of children's favourite snack foods, so the shapes, biscuits, 2-minute noodles, primarily in the flavour sachets. Things such as flavoured corn chips, mac and cheese, and what's really annoying is you'll find it in a lot of rice crackers that are labelled as plain, so you assume that they are just salt and rice and maybe a bit of oil. Flip over and look at the other side and you'll see that there are flavour enhancers used on a plain salted product. So you wouldn't expect to see that. You might expect to see it on your flavoured shapes and your 2-minute noodles, but you can easily get caught out because you'll often find it in your plain flavoured goods as well. You're going to find this additive basically in anything that has lots of flavour and particularly salty, savoury taste to it. So you'll find it in a lot of soup mixes, whether they're packaged or whether they're canned. You'll find it in stocks. Lots of party pies or pies in general, sausage rolls, and also you'll find it either in the seasoning that's used on the coating of your roast chook or in the seasoning and the stuffing inside the roast chook as well. You'll also find it in prepared or instant sauce mixes, gravies, and your pre-prepared and ready-to-go meals. You'll find it in salad dressing, you'll find it in flavoured tuna, and you'll definitely find it in any kind of marinated meats that you'll buy from your butcher and from the supermarket. If MSG is added to a food, it must appear in the ingredients list as MSG, or it'll be labelled as Flavour Enhancer 621. So it is a requirement that it has to be there. Now, because we're not seeing MSG itself listed on the product, that literally as MSG, that gives people the impression that MSG is really not around anymore. We don't have to worry about it. But this is unfortunately a wrong impression, because MSG is more widely used than ever. What outrageous parents are labels that you get like this? You can see there that it says on the package of 2-minute noodles, simple goodness, no artificial colours or flavours. There is no mention of MSG when you flip it over and look at the ingredients list. So all round you think, okay, maybe I've heard in the past that 2-minute noodles were dodgy and I shouldn't be giving them to my kids, but there's no artificial colours or flavours and I can't see MSG listed on there. Everything is fine. So you think you're buying an okay product. But remember that MSG can be also labelled simply as Flavour Enhancer number 621. Also keep in mind that they can get away with saying that there are no artificial flavours in there, even though you have artificial flavour enhancers being used, because you see they are flavour enhancers, therefore they are not technically flavours. So as someone else put it, this is a distinction that amuses regulators. They don't think it matters, they think it's splitting hairs, but the effects on families are not amusing at all. When having a conversation about MSG and the flavour enhancers, we also need to have a conversation about the glutamates. When you have ingredients such as hydrolyzed vegetable protein, soy sauce, or yeast extracts as an ingredient listed on your product, that sounds very natural. You can't see the word flavour enhancers there, you certainly can't see the word MSG there. But these natural ingredients are very high in free glutamates. And remember that free glutamates are very high in MSG and flavour enhancers. So there is potential that if you're sensitive to MSG, if there are issues with flavour enhancers, that there are possibly going to be issues also with these ingredients that are naturally rich in free glutamates. What makes it tricky is that the amounts of free glutamates in these particular ingredients will vary. So that means that sometimes you'll actually be able to tolerate them being in your food, sometimes you won't, and you won't know which ones you can or can't handle because you won't know how much of the free glutamates are present in that ingredient that that particular manufacturer has used in that particular product. Glutamates are called the health food oil flavour enhancers because the ingredients that they are found in, such as soy sauce, yeast extract, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, are largely found in healthy foods. Also, highly processed foods can be loaded with glutamates, and often it's the ones that have a tick of approval for being low in salt, low in fat, low in sugar. In other words, they're marketed as healthy foods as well. Now, if you take all of those items out of a food, it's highly processed and it's going to have very little taste, so it's not going to taste like anything that you want to eat unless you throw in some glutamates to make it taste like something. So these are the different names that free glutamates can be hidden in or can be in high amounts in. So as mentioned, you've got some of the terms there: hydrolyzed vegetable protein, hydrolyzed plant protein. It may also use the word hydrolyzed, autolyzed, formulated vegetable, plant such and such, and instead of protein it may, or plant protein, it may use the words wheat, gluten, soy, maize, plant, and so on. So basically any combination of those words grouped together will suggest that that's possibly a way to hide a high concentration of glutamates. Yeast or yeast flakes. Now, unless that is yeast that's used in baked products like bread, because that will imply that that's baker's yeast, so that's a little bit different. Anything that says yeast extracts, and you have a few different brand names there, are likely to be very high in glutamates, the free glutamates. Free glutamate may also be present in added flavours in savoury foods. So simply just saying flavour, flavours or natural flavours, if we're talking about the savoury foods, potentially may have glutamates hiding in there. Kombu extracts, simply just saying broth on there, especially chicken broth, is often going to be high in glutamates. Vegetable powders, tomato powders, soy sauce, and other sauces and seasonings such as barbecue sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and Bragg's all-purpose seasoning, stocks and stock cubes. All of these are potential ways that the manufacturer can bomb their product with the free glutamates, which may mean that for you or your child that is going to cause a reaction similar to what you might see with MSG or similar to what you might see with the flavour enhancers. So how can we get around that problem? Unfortunately, it is quite difficult to come up with alternatives for these additives because it may mean that you simply cannot buy certain packaged goods at all because often there isn't a really good alternative on the market. So it may mean just the 600 series numbers, and you may, depending on your level of sensitivity, need to be cautious about the foods and sources as per that previous list that the glutamates can be found in. When it comes to home cooking, it means relying on things such as salt, pepper, herbs and spices to flavour your food rather than packet sauces, rather than stock cubes and so on. Eating out is admittedly going to be difficult depending on your sensitivity. It may mean that you need to obviously avoid the flavour enhancers, but you may not be able to avoid items such as yeast extract, stock cubes and soy sauce because they're heavily used for seasoning and flavouring. Unfortunately, that does mean eating out could be an issue, and at the moment there's not really much of an easy way around that one apart from very simple, very plain eating like steak and a salad. And that ends today's course. If there are any questions, remember to ask.